Fluorspar, in terms of chemistry, it is the most reactive element in the periodic table. And the interesting dynamic, fluorspar has embarked on a bull market in the last 20 years. The price of fluorspar has gone up from less than $50 a ton to less than $100 a ton to right now close to $500. So each gigawatt costs about $10 to $15 billion to build. So what we're talking about here is just OpenAI in the next 3 to 5 years is talking about building 15 to 20 of these data centers. Just OpenAI.
Hello and welcome back to the Next Big Rush. I have here with me today John Lee of CleanTech Vanadium. Welcome, John Lee.
Yeah, good to be on your show, Lara, for the first time. I see your channel is the Next Big Rush.
The Next Big Rush.
We discover something today.
We talk about a few different things. One of them clearly is uranium. Now, you came to me with a somewhat exotic proposition. You wanted to come onto the channel and talk about fluorspar. I'm not going to lie. I had to look that up. I'm like, what in the heck is fluorspar? Why is it important? And why should we care about it as uranium investors? Most of my followers are uranium investors. I think I can take the liberty to say that because I know them personally. A lot of the time, I go to all these conferences and I meet up with people and they tell me, hey, I own these companies and I'm long uranium. That's the big topic here. We like a little bit of everything, gold, silver and whatnot, but uranium is really the big driver behind a lot of our portfolios. So for the uranium investor, why should we care about fluorspar? What is it and why is the time now to look at this commodity?
Yeah, Laura, I also follow uranium, Rig Rule. I've been around for 25 years, first 10 years as a mining investor. And then after the financial crisis, I thought I tried the other side of the aisle and run a mining company. And then blink of an eye is 15 years later, raised over $150 million through the Toronto Stock Exchange. My specialization is silver and critical minerals, given my background in high-tech industry, like we talked about just prior to the show. So I know the Rig Rules and the Louis James and a lot of the uranium writers and uranium bulls. Fluorspar, to answer your question, is a lot like the Batman it's like that the Robin to the Batman. So, when we talk about uranium, we talk about U3O8, we talked about uranium enrichment, and some of your audience might well know how uranium is enriched. I personally just like you, even though I proclaim to be one of the being around the block, but I didn't know much about fluorspar until last year, and we can talk about the reasons. I was in China, site visit, due diligence in China, and all they talk about was fluorspar. And that's how I embarked on this journey just about a year ago. Every uranium need to be married with 6-fluorine for enrichment. So fluorspar, let me back up a bit, is in terms of chemistry, it is the most reactive element in the periodic table. And it's what I call the Victoria's Secret model that can even get the attention from the nerdiest bookworm. That's why it's able to react with uranium and form what they call the uranium hexafluoride and levitate and gasify uranium, then for it to go through the centrifuge process, of which the U-235 was spun out. The lesser weight, the lighter fissile uranium is then separated from the heavier U-238 plutonium heavy uranium. And from there, the fissile uranium is collected at around the 5% threshold, and then that is the fuel you use. Then you bombard a neutron to the U-235, and the U-235 will be split. So incidentally, nuclear enrichment is the top 3 usage of fluorspar, which accounts for about 20 to 35% of the total fluorspar consumption, and then the others were acting as a steel and aluminum fluxing agent to create that layer to prevent oxidation, and then after that there is well over 100 applications for fluorine use. Once fluorine is married to, say, the fluorocarbon or fluorosulfide, then it becomes very well strongly bonded, which becomes a very inert element that goes into your refrigerant, your air conditioning, your Teflon, solar panel protective layers for wind turbine. And also this new advent of application that's driven fluorspar prices up 50% in the last 3 years is electrolyte. So that's to deal with both energy storage and electric vehicles, where sodium and lithium hexafluorophosphate used as the electrolyte to carry the lithium and sodium ions across between the cathode and the anode within the batteries.
That's interesting. I didn't know that it had that angle of battery usage as well. So you have vanadium in the ground, and you also have fluorspar, which also is linked to batteries, although different types of batteries for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding is it is essential, I guess you could say, to the enrichment process that we're all betting on, which we can see it develop right in front of our eyes. You know, when I entered this thesis of uranium, I think it was 2014, super early days, probably way too early and wrong for a little while. And then I've seen it completely change. I've seen the story around it change. And what is astounding to me is that we've made a shift from, counting on all of these nuclear power plants completely shutting off to not only their lives being extended, but more of them being approved, planned, built, et cetera, and at such a rapid scale in the last 3 years or so. And so if we're talking about 20% of fluorine demand to be linked to the nuclear cycle, let's call it,
Yes.
then obviously demand is going to go way up. So and that's not counting EVs and different applications that go hand in hand with, I guess, our world economy. But what about the supply side? Where is it mostly mined, and what are some of the possible hiccups that can happen in the production and export of fluorspar and fluorine?
Yeah, great question. You cannot talk about critical minerals, of which fluorspar is one of them. Used to be 33, classified by the U.S. Geological Bureau, but now that list is expanded, I think just a month ago, to over 50. So fluorspar has been a long-standing element in critical minerals, ranking in the critical mineral space. And we cannot talk about critical minerals without talking about China, of which fluorspar is 60% of the world fluorspar came from China. And then together with this neighbor, Mongolia, which account for another 10%. So the total world supply is around 10 million tons a year, of which China and Mongolia account for 70% of that. And then the number three comes is Mexico. And then after those three countries, nobody really, it's off the league table. And the interesting dynamic, if fluorspar has embarked on a bull market in the last 20 years, the price of fluorspar has gone up from less than $50 a ton to less than $100 a ton to right now close to 500. And so because of all these arrays of applications and because of the advancement of the technology that enable us to handle fluorspar much better than we were before. Just one other quick application. Well, we can talk about so much on fluorspar. Let's focus on uranium for a minute. I study uranium a lot. Uranium production in terms of overall energy mix has been fairly stable. And there hasn't really been any new nuclear power plant that's come on stream in the United States or Europe or UK, because it's $10 billion for one gigawatt of uranium power plant that's going to take 10 years to build.
And it's always late.
After Fukushima, now a modern nuclear power plant have to withstand the impact of a 737. And so go back to in terms of the supply, what has really changed what has really sort of the urgency created by China to gobble up more fluorspar is that China has turned into a net importer of fluorspar since 3 years ago. And that is not so much to do with uranium, because like I said, that 20% clip is being fairly stable, and which is important. You need that stable sort of, regular customers. But it's really to do with new life found in fluorspar, which is electrolyte energy storage. And it's not just to do with EVs, of which everybody knows about, and it's a bit of saturated right now. Even China, half of cars already EV, and there's a bit of pushback in the United States on EVs. So it has its own market, but it's really about energy storage, and which centers around the power generation for the nuclear bugs. Is that we're entering a huge renaissance. I think both your nuclear energy, anything to do with energy production and energy storage is going to be embarking on a massive bull market, of which fluorspar is one of the ways to ride it, because you don't want to get getting into solar tech production or any advanced technology in thorium or in other forms of energy production. And I want to give you a little bit of context, which is quite important, I believe, your audience, from my recent sort of research. Everything's all coming together very rapidly. OpenAI has been making a lot of headlines in the last 12 months. Earlier this year in 2025 announced a investment of $500 billion in the United States to build data centers in conjunction with SoftBank and the Saudi Arabia, the Middle East investors. And what they're doing, Lara, is they're building data centers. It's like they're building data centers. It's like they're training a toddler, right? How to learn, and they're literally crawling all your emails and your everything under the sun to feed this model for the babies to learn. And these data centers and the data center, interestingly, they are measured not in terms of processing speed or memory capacity, but they're measured in power consumption because you can build a chip fairly easily. I mean, it's software, it's manufacturing. So they're building the size of a typical a data center is 1 gigawatt. That is now very much of the standard size. Used to be smaller, but 1 gigawatt seems to be the ideal size. So each gigawatt costs about $10 to $15 billion to build. So what we're talking about here is just OpenAI in the next 3 to 5 years is talking about building 15 to 20 of these data centers, and so that's like 15 gigawatts. Just call it a round number, 15 gigawatts. Okay, just OpenAI. Well, 15. You're a nuclear guy, and the largest nuclear power plant on Earth is Bruce Power, and that's 4 gigawatt. 4 gigawatt, and that's like after upgrading and retrofitting But
that's
now,
pretty big.
like a typical conventional power plant out of China using the French technology, which I visited in Guangdong, China Nuclear, which is near Shenzhen. And so that is 1 gigawatt module 1 gigawatt. That's fairly standard. So you're talking about 15 nuclear power plants just to make OpenAI happy. Then you have Elon Musk, right? And then you have Elon Musk and then you have Anthropic, you have XAI, you have Oracle, you have Meta, you have Microsoft, you have Amazon. Like these are collectively, some analysts expect the energy consumption, that there is upwards of $800 billion of investment going into this crazy data centers. So 800 billion minus 5 billion, you're talking like 130 gigawatts of power. I mean, that's like more than 30% additional power required for the United States. And even at that clip, China still surpassed United States energy production by a factor of 2, and China is building everything. So I don't say nuclear is going to be the satisfy the appetite, and empirical evidence suggests such. If you look at the largest energy production in the United States, natural gas is 40%, followed by solar, which is around 25%. It just eclipsed nuclear and coal and oil. I mean, natural gas. So nuclear is around 5 to 10%. So 20% is about coal, 20% is gas. So oil, and then 25% is solar. And China are building 50 gigawatts of solar panels and energy storage per year. And on that basis, this is the principle. This is the principal vehicle to power the future. And Elon Musk rightfully pointed out, just on the corner of Utah, you can build a solar farm that's enough to satisfy entire power consumption of the United States. And you're going to be building tens of gigawatts of solar panels. But the problem, as you can imagine, is only when the sun shines. So this is where the energy storage comes in. And I want to sort of bring this to roots, is that 10 years ago, Lara, when I started getting into the critical mineral space, studying that lithium ion batteries was $500 kilowatt hours, and today lithium ion batteries is about $100 to $150 a kilowatt hour. But with the advent of sodium ion batteries, the cost of that is brought down to a third of that at $50 a kilowatt hour. So at $50 kilowatt hour with sodium ion batteries, of which energy density is less of a concern, say versus electric vehicles, even though the technology is caught up where sodium ion batteries can carry 70% of the energy density of lithium ion batteries today. But the sodium ion battery is being employed en masse in China to supplement the solar power. So at 50 cents a kilowatt hour plus the solar panel at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, you're looking at all in a levelized cost of energy at around less than 10 cents a kilowatt hour. I mean, as you know, nuclear, depending on how you measure it, it's anywhere from 30 to 50, right?
Yeah.
But of course, once power plants is up, the cost goes a lot down. But that capex element to be capitalized is in the 30 to 50 cents kilowatt hour, which means that by de facto that the solar energy compared with energy storage is bar none the only solution to power your data centers. And this is kind of exciting every time I talk about it. I'm just in awe is that people are so oblivious of what's happening. And they're building data centers. NVIDIA is churning out these state chips are $50,000. They're building a roof like Elon Musk can build the size of a Costco warehouse in like 2 months. But in the United States, each of these 1 gigawatt data centers takes up to 3 years to build. So you can see the writing on the wall, Lara. So we started building around 2024, mid 2024. So by mid 2026, 2027, they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna have the opening ceremony, and they're gonna switch. They're gonna turn on the switch, and guess what's gonna happen? There's not gonna be power, Lara. This is like a head-on collision.
It's madness. It's complete madness. It just goes to show that I think the thesis of energy this decade is probably one of the strongest cases that you can make for investing pretty much anywhere around the world, because we simply do not have the energy that's necessary to even maintain normal standards as it is. But in order to grow and compete internationally, we absolutely are going to. We entered this decade talking about billions in energy. We're gonna exit talking about trillions. I am certain of it, that trillions is going to be the norm for energy capex and energy investments overall. But
when they turn on the switch, and there's going to be in the next 3 years estimated around 20 gigawatts of data centers, 20 in 3 to 5 years. So we're talking not so far from here. They're going to turn on and say, where's the power? Okay, it's kind of like the Trump administration where there's a rare earth export restriction. All of a sudden, oh my God.
Yeah, where do we get
heading
from?
off a cliff, and then billions are pouring into rare earth.
Oops, the price has tripled.
And the guys are recycling these rare earth projects. They're being out of bank Chapter 11 like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? Same with lithium. Now the Trump administration investing in Lithium America, investing in germanium, throwing billions of dollars. The same writing off the wall, because they're not going to be pouring enough money on uranium, on nuclear power plants, because it's not enough fast enough to build. They cannot build coal. So the only way is they're going to build solar panels, which require fluorine, to create that Teflon surface for protection. And also fluorine glass is used to texture semiconductor wafers, TSMCs, as well as the solar panel to optimize light absorption and etching the silicon onto the wafers. So that's the only way to get it. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see this massive rush into fluorspar. And guess what? This time China is not going to come to the rescue, because they don't even have fluorspar for themselves. There is over 50 years of rare earth reserves in China. There's less than 5 in China. So after the COVID restrictions lifted in early 2023, Chinese government gave it a mandate to hunt for fluorspar anywhere in the world. So they're bidding for fluorspars in Africa, in Kenya. If you just Google China and fluorspar, you see they're being extremely active. And so the caveat or another takeaway is, as we mentioned, Mexico is the only other sole provider, source provider of fluorspar outside of Mongolia and China, of which China has a stronghold on Mongolia. Mexico fluorspar used to be selling at 20% discount into United States because it was competing with China. But now China is importer, so the Mexican fluorspar is reigning the world export market. And that 20-30% discount has all but evaporated. And if you care to Google, where does Germany buy its fluorspar for its EV batteries and the semiconductors? Where does Korea buy its fluorspar? Where does Japan buy its fluorspar? It's all Mexico. And I don't think Mexico is a friendly ally of the United States, given the tenuous Mexican and U.S. histories, if you read about it, and you could clearly see this head-on collision. America is always late to the game in lithium, in rare earth, and those critical minerals. But once the game's caught on, kind of antimony, now it's another buzzword, or cobalt. 5 years ago with Apple, the price usually go up 5 to 10 times, and the stock just go crazy. So there are only two, like we could talk about sort of how we can ride the fluorspar opportunity, but there are only two companies listed in North American stock exchange.
Tell me about CleanTech and what you guys have, because I looked up and you guys are in Kentucky, which to me was surprising. I didn't know that there was any sort of, bankable mineralization or economic minerals in Kentucky. To me, the only association I have, in all honesty, to Kentucky is Kentucky Fried Chicken. And and so tell me about your projects and what you have going on there.
It's such a hidden gem that's getting discovered, and what I should call rediscovered. The U.S. Geological Survey, which is the U.S. sort of exploration arm, is listed United States having only 2 million tons of fluorspar in resources. But what they didn't know, or they know, but they didn't care to elaborate further, because we actually talked to USGS, the head of USGS, and there is a fluorspar division, that this wonderful Illinois Kentucky Fluorspar Belt, which measures about 600 square miles, is a huge area. It is what we believe, or what we know for sure, is one of the best, most endowed fluorspar district in the world. Just the project that's being under option acquired by CleanTech in the last 5 months, of which there's a historical fluorspar resource of estimated 10 million tons, and we think that there's multiple kinds of that within our option and acquired properties, because given what we see of areas being explored versus what we have. And also there's over 740 drill holes on the property with extended production exploration history going back to 150 years. I do want to preface that the 10 million tons is a historical standard. It's not matter standard, requires QA, QC, and QP. But we looked at a lot of cross sections and drill results. Some of them were typewritten, some are hand drawn, and they were just terabytes of data. And we're just in awe. I mean, Lara, in the last 5 months, the company as such a terrific team effort, and as a little disbelief in that we're quite a bit gray hair in the last 5 months. The projects, the areas under option by CleanTech is greater than the size of Manhattan. Right now, we're measuring at 17,000 acres, over 20 different distinct deposits. They're all strategically located in critical strategic mineral trends and faults. So today, CleanTech controls around 20% of the whole IFKD area of 600 miles, but these are all very strategic. So we're probably one of the largest elephant, if not the largest elephant in the IFKD district, which is bar none. It's not even comparison to other little flies out there. We're the elephant. Because this IFKD district had over 10 million tons of historical production, going back to World War II, where a lot of the weaponaries and steel are produced in the area. The district was shut down in the late 70s because Chinese flooded the fluorspar market, just like they did, and just like they did with a lot of just about every other everything else on the periodic table. And the U.S. sold off its fluorspar strategic stockpile in the late 90s or early 2000s because they think the commodity is a barbaric relic. But now, given the Trump administration, they are now recreating a fluorspar strategic stockpile, which is only going to add insult to the wounds, or I'm not sure the best analogy, but basically we're getting a gold rush back into the fluorspar space. Except this is fluorspar, and the IFKT district, which is Illinois Kentucky Fluorspar District, is akin to the Carlin, the Nevada for gold. So we are, like I said, we start getting into the space, study the space after my trip in China in November of last year, and we made the first foray after 6 months of due diligence and working with the local stakeholders to acquire the first project in July of this year, 5 months ago. And in the last 5 months, we've acquired, made 6 or 7 separate transactions and acquired 17,000 acres. It's just, now we own the entire state of Manhattan. We have Union Square, Central Park, Chelsea. We have, Meatpacker District and Upper East, Upper West, Brooklyn. We got so much stuff going on. It's unbelievable.
And a lot of data to go with it. So what can people expect the next few months? Actually, let's look into 2026. What do you hope to achieve with this company in 2026 so that people can, add your company to their watch list and they can see you execute on your plan?
Yeah, Lara, I want to emphasize that we are past inflection point. So we're not like waiting for the shoe to drop, but like we have to wait for higher fluorspar prices. Fluorspar price is $500 a ton, and our grades are out of the grounds are averaging 30 to 60% fluorspar. So these rocks are very, very valuable at around $300-400 a ton just out of the ground. Versus like if you're mining like other base metals, copper or even silver or gold, you're looking at happy to have $100 per ton of rock. We're at $300, $200 to $400. Our goal, our end game, I want to stop there and work backward, is to get one of these assets into production as soon as possible. We've been contacted by the U.S. Government agencies as well as some of the largest fluorspar users. They're in such relief that somebody is finally coming in and consolidating the district, dealing with some difficult people, easy people, collecting the data, consolidating hundreds of drill holes, thousands of drill holes in the district, various different production history, lots of tailings and waste materials, abandoned shafts. I mean, it's just like somebody need to go in and clean the house, and that's exactly what we're doing. And then bring awareness. Bring the industry participants, make them understood that they can be assured that there is domestic supply in the United States. It's not a $2 million benchmark that's being pegged by the USGS. Annual fluorspar consumption in the United States today is 500,000 tons. Mexico produced only 1 million tons. But United States, I speculate, is going to need at least double of 500,000 tons it consumes today 3 years from now, given all the power, hunger, demand in electrolyte, in uranium, and everything else. So there's nowhere else. Mathematically, it's an impossibility. There's no fluorspar anywhere else in the world to give the United States like what it's been asking for. And it can't even give 20% of what it's asking more, what it's asking for. So our goal is to get the project into production as quickly as is possible while adhering to the American environmental standards. So the way we do that is looking at some replicability, abandoned warehouses, processing facilities of which can retrofit and acquire existing permit to repurpose that. And then secondly is looking at waste and tailings materials, and some of them may be just lower grades of fluorspar they just abandoned out there. And then some of the near surface materials, probably only 5% of our project is being mined before, so there is plenty of greenfield spaces, also brownfield, depending on how we find out. And we're having daily calls, an hour, 2 hours to really. Because sometimes you can like imagine the first time in New York, right? In Manhattan, it could be like Lost Wonderland. Today you go to Times Square, you're like, oh my God. And then the next day you go to Lower Manhattan, oh my God, you go to Central Park. So that's exactly where we're right now. So I think we got to have a very laser sharp focus, do our homework up front, and then go all in with our homework to getting the right project to move forward to production as quickly as possible. So what we're doing is exactly what you said, Lara, is we are looking at this 10 million tons of historical resources, 740 drill hole plus, production histories, mine shafts and mine plans and ramp and shafts and all that. Was like, okay, let's verify those data, right? That's not just, this is not just a number on a piece of paper. We gotta like, hey, are there cores available? Are there studies? Can we verify that? How can we bring one of these projects up to modern standards? How can we how can we transform these numbers into real actions? So 2026, 2025 is all about M&A, of which is coming down. This acquisition trail is coming to an end or winding down. But 2026 is all about sharing and presenting our findings. I think your audience would be quite shocked at this is not a greenfield. This is rediscovering this illustrious histories of American fluorspar and rewriting the chapter and bring back the Renaissance. And I think we can do that relatively quickly within 2 to 4 years, given the good infrastructure, some strong local support, and the production, like all the Alcoas, all the aluminum steel makers, chemical producers, they all have bought from the area. We know because they told us 50 years ago. So they were relieved and glad to be a nuclear power plant operator. They're talking to us right now to work with us. They try with the local people, talk about hard to deal with. I mean, can you imagine, Lara, if you got a $50 billion power plant operator coming and knocking on the door, I mean, these people, it's just, there's a big disconnect.
Yeah.
And this is where a nimble junior company like us coming in to bridge the gap and to create the nexus to be the matchmaker and to thread the needles of all the stakeholders. And so next year is all about presenting our data and very clear path towards production. And then at the current fluorspar price is great. If fluorspar goes higher, based on what we see so far and the reception of engaging some of our investors so far, I think that it's not going to take hundreds of millions of dollars. Conventional sulfide flotation like you would do for a silver project, gold project, start with 500 tons per day, $30 to $50 million, and you can build it from there. And so we got a lot of things mapped out, and we will be very excited to share our roadmap to our stakeholders, investors, and shareholders early in 2026. And from there, it's all about execution.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I'll be following this story for sure because, this was not on my radar whatsoever, but now that it is, I want to follow up and see what's going on and how you can, bring those resources into compliant resources so that people can see, what there is already in the US just sitting there waiting to be extracted and used. Because let me tell you, when I look into the future here for the next decade or two, absolute insane number of demand for just about everything to do with energy and
production and storage. It's all about power production, nuclear, and energy storage with the sodium ion batteries. Now, if I may expand a little bit more in terms of the boxes not to be checked off, working with the majors and the bankers, there's a legal, and we talked quite a bit about the technical aspects of it, right? The resources, the tonnages, the flotation, the metallurgy a little bit, the historical production. So we're very confident that this fluorspar is compatible because 10 million tons is being dug out of the ground and fitting into the United States consumers. So that's all the technical aspects. And then there's the legal aspect, which is to do with permitting environmental. So like I said, we're starting engagement with some of the local communities, and they're actually quite supportive. And we're going to continue to do that. And on the permitting side, Kentucky is a red state. It has a very rich histories of production in fluorspar, in coal, as well as in some of the base metals like zinc. So it is not like California or Michigan or some of the iron belt states where they're still in this paradox of balancing out which way they want to go. So I think the early discussion so far in Kentucky is we're very optimistic. And that given our track history of over 20 years in the industry, that we have some terrific talents in getting projects permitted in the United States. CleanTech's Vanadium project is the only vanadium project received a record of decision from the Bureau of Land Management in the federal government. I think it's one of only 5 or less than 5 greenfield mining projects received the go-ahead from the federal government during the entire Biden administration. So that just shows that we can navigate and working with the permitting agencies in the United States to get the project permitted. We don't see that as a challenge and obstacles. So we talked about technical and the legal, and last but not least is financial aspect of it. We have, our sister company, Silver Elephant, has projects in production in Mongolia, in Bolivia. I've toured dozens of mining projects in operation all over the world. So this is a very straightforward, almost cookie cutter top type operations of 500 to 750 tons per day. You're looking at very manageable, we believe very manageable capex. And given that this is the United States, this is the lowest geopolitical risk. We don't even need to pay for any political insurance. I mean, we can. I'm sure all the equipment vendors, it's like Caterpillars or shafts or equipments, we can get easy financing at a very attractive rate. So I think the capex is the financial project financing aspect is very manageable. The endowment of our resources unquestionable. And then the legal aspect, these legal rights, mineral deeds existed well over 100 years ago. And, we buy this project, we show these are like typed in typewriter dated 1920. So they're rock solids. We're not in Burkina Faso, we're not in Mali.
No AK-47 protection needed, which
well, you never know. It is a red state. So they do have that. They do have that.
You have the option, but it's better to not need it, right?
So we are, and Lara, so I came out on the show 4 months ago when we acquired the first project. The stock was trading at $4 million market cap because vanadium was relatively in the doldrum. I came on a couple of shows. I hope we'd have got to know you a little earlier. But I'll be sure to come back to you updates as the story goes along. I said this is the best investment opportunity in my 25-year career. And I was buying shares. Everyone was buying shares left and right at 4 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents a share at 140 million share market cap. It was a $5 million market cap. And then the critical minerals wave came in with rare earth and all that, and germanium and antimony and lithium in October. The stock went from 4 cents to 50 cents in a month. And I think it was a little overheated at $100 million market cap at the time, but now the stock is settled back in at around 14 cents. The company has $1 million in cash, continued warrants coming in at around 5-cent warrants. And so we don't need cash in the next 6 months. The acquisition trial is almost completed. We don't need anything after we announced the sort of the development plan in earlier 2026. Depending on the volume, we could raise a bit of money, but we have a very low burn rate. And so at around 10-15 cents right now, which is around $30 million market cap, compared to this antimony guy is $1 billion, right? Everything starts with a B. Antimony is $1 billion, germanium is $1 billion, rare earth is $1 billion, lithium is $1 billion. This first run up is come to its conclusion, but now it's settling at a very nice sort of a base levels of which a position could be established. In terms of share structure, I mentioned 140 million shares outstanding. The company was spun out from Silver Elephant. So Silver Elephant stakeholders held still around 60 million shares, about 40% of the shares. The company traded 80 million shares in the last 5 months. This entire float has changed hands in just 4 months. We traded like 5 million shares a day. But right now, there's about 500,000 shares trading a day at 10, 14 cents. So there is a good some good volume. Liquidity for anybody who's looking into getting a position. And I do believe that this is a very attractive entry point.
Interesting. Well, we'll be following up for sure because you guys are going to have to come out with confirmation that what you have in the ground is what you said. And then we can come back and follow up and tell people that you're actually checking even more boxes. But that's very it's very admirable that you're getting your box ticked on the vanadium project, because it's not easy. I mean, getting the okay from the regulators and everything,
and it's expensive
step by step, yeah, and slow. If it were
Lara,
just expensive, we could figure it out, but it's slow.
I talked to these dozens of consultants in the United States, and a lot of them are almost like they're almost like doctors and lawyers, meaning that they are very inquisitive. They can milk the clock. They do very well on that. And there's $400, $500, $800 an hour. So in the blink of an eye, you could be running a pretty big tab. So like we're very fortunate on that. One other thing, Laura, we talked about this project from legal, technical, and financial point of view. But one of the other very important tasks that have been assigned is to bridge the valuation gap. We believe the company is extremely undervalued at $30 million market cap compared to our peers. There's a company in Australia, Tevon, that's trading at $300 million market cap, 10 times our valuation. very similar resource profile, albeit they're a lot more advanced in terms of feasibility. But they're in the middle of nowhere, requires $1 billion infrastructure. We don't need any infrastructure.
Mhm.
And the Japanese just came in for a 20% investment, I think, for $50 million. So that is not a paper tiger. And the Koreans are hunting for it. Japanese are hunting for it. The Mongolians are bought by the Chinese, by the Chinese. So the market right now, ex-US, investors are paying around $30 a ton of fluorspar in the ground. So if CleanTech can eventually prove that there's 10 million tons of resources in the ground,
Mhm.
potentially theoretically, we could be getting a $300 million valuation, if not more, given that the US typically carries a premium, not a discount to market. So
That's a
the
good
jury's
comparison.
out, wait and see. But based on what I've seen so far, uh, it is a it is as a no-brainer as I can think. Like you're not going to run into expropriation risk. The,
For
the
sure.
the the titles are solid. You have a team that's proven how to navigate the permitting landscape. And Fluorspar, even if this electrolyte somehow doesn't work out, which I don't see why not, because there's no substitute to that. But there's no substitute to uranium enrichment, and then there's the refrigerant, the all the other arrays of applications. So you well hash in that regard, and it's time to just get that popcorn and ready for the movie.
And I would like to invite everybody who is maybe somewhat new to investing in junior mining to take a hard look at projects that are close to infrastructure and around
Yes.
infrastructure versus middle of nowhere projects. And the reason why I say this is when it comes down to the financial aspect of putting a project into construction, it is painful when you see how much needs to be spent on bringing water, building a road, bringing electricity, shipping stuff out to a port or wherever. That stuff sometimes make the project so heavy initially that the financial return just isn't there, right? And then it's a matter of, okay, let's sit it out and wait for maybe 20 years when the government decides to build a road close to us, and then we'll be able to
Well, to get the permit to
catch
build
the
the
next
road.
cycle.
Well, then
Exactly.
you get a permit to build the road, the permit over the bridge, permit to get a permit
Yes.
to build a power plant. Now I came in at 2000 when Gordon Brown, like, used to be the days. I remember early days to raise $100 million for a mine, like a mine. We came out with $100 million feasibility. So, oh my God, 100 million, I'm gonna raise that. Like everything starts with a billion. And
Yeah.
you're right, location, like real estate in terms of proximity to infrastructure.
Yeah.
The other one is grade is king. The
Right.
reason for that is that you're gonna move twice as much earth to
Hmm.
for processing, for power consumption, for
Hmm.
carbon footprint, for portal, for opening, for mines, everything. If your grades half of your peers, so sometimes you get bogged down, like you talk about this 10 million tons, like a big number, right? You chase the big
Right.
whale. But you also got to say, you know what? If what you're going after is production, not just the optionality play, then you got to look into, how is it viable, not just in terms of its infrastructure, not in terms of its reserves, but be a bit more homework on the grades. And some of our projects are up to 67%, 70% of the grades coming out of the ground. So we also get that mark check. So like you said, yeah, not all babies are created equal.
For sure. For sure. Awesome. Anything else that you'd like to leave us with?
Yes, check us out. You can see my Twitter. I used to tweet a lot. I'm pretty good calling timing. We bought vanadium at $3 when vanadium was $5 a pound, and went to $35 in 2 years. We bought silver at $15 an ounce in 2017, and now it's at 60. And we bought nickel at $5 a pound, and 2 years later went to 50 in 2022. Uh, I'm a little bit late to get in Fluorspar because the price has gone up already 4 times since year 2000. But the price gone up 50% in the just last 3 years because China become a net importer, and because they're building these huge energy storage facilities that require Fluorspar. But I see Fluorspar potentially double or triple in the next 3 years when the day of reckoning come in the United States. China already understood that they need Fluorspar. They're grappling for it. But United States, when this data center come on stream next year, the year after, they're gonna see this parallel exponential demand, and they're gonna see the flattened curve on energy production, and nothing. Lara, I want to emphasize one more time, cannot be understated that nothing is gonna be bring on to the grid. No coal is gonna be able to do that. No, like no nuclear is gonna do that. Eventually, and the irony of this all is that the irony, Lara, are you ready? They're gonna have to resort to building peaker plants and burning oil to generate electricity.
Yeah.
So it goes around circle where you're talking about, low carbonization, but you're going back to burning gas, peaker plants, in oil to generate electricity to feed Elon Musk's solar farms and Teslas.
Somehow we all resort back to oil in one way.
It's going to come back down to it. I was very, very bearish of oil, like some of the analysts. There's like a bird character. I can't remember, but now I'm actually increasing bullish on oil at $50 because oil at $50 today is like $15 with inflation adjusted. And back in 1980, oil was 40, gold was 800. Over the last 150 years, gold was trading average at 10 barrels of oil. So at right now, $4,000 gold, oil should be trading at 400, and oil right now is 40. So everything's going to be inflated.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so if you're going to invest in energy power production and power energy storage, I would not be into the exotics like cobalt, even lithium or manganese. Nickel, because these metals with the technology breakthroughs, they're going to go down to the common denominators. Even sodium, even lithium is replaced by sodium, and cobalt, manganese, all these transition metals being replaced by iron, right? So the way you go about it and technology keep breaking through. So the way to go about energy, to bet on the future energy is right now maybe going back to oil. So I stake my ground. We can talk about oil 6 months from now and see where it stands.
Let's do that for sure. I am gonna go long oil either this month or next month. So wish me luck. Thank you so much, John. I'll speak to you very soon.
Oh, I forgot, Lara. Sorry,
yes.
I digressed. Check us out at CleanTech CTV. Just go to YouTube. We actually have a wonderful team, youngsters that are churning out a lot of educational videos, 60-second shorts, just give you a quick rundown on what fluorspar is about, how fluorspar is produced, how fluorspar is used, how fluorspar is processed, and then also can check us out at cleantechctv.com. We do have a 60-second intro on our project and our company.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, and I'll speak to you very soon. Take care.
Thank you.